Hi folks, and welcome back to Meaningful Money. Yeah, here I am at Lanyon Coit. Never been here before. It's a sort of, well, I've no idea how old it is. You'd think I'd have done some homework, but that bit on the top is one massive bit of granite. No idea how they would have got that up there, because I think it's been here for millennia. No idea what age it's from, but never mind that. Carrying on our series on equity release, and specifically this time we're going to talk about something called SHIP, which is an acronym, stands for the Safe Home Income Plans Scheme. Before we get into that detail, as ever, I must thank my good friends down here in the bottom right. That's Seven Investment Management, who sponsor Meaningful Money and help me to keep going, so I'm very grateful to them for doing so. So, the SHIP scheme was established in 1991. Equity release, sort of up to that point, had quite a bad name. And you'd be surprised when I'm talking to people about it, how often, particularly initially, they almost sort of back away in fear because they have this impression still that it's a kind of dodgy thing. Certainly there are people who have had bad experience of equity release, but as I've mentioned before, it's come a very long way, and the SHIP scheme has needs to take a lot of credit for that, really. It was established in 1991, and basically it's a set of minimum standards that the equity release companies who had adhered to it, they voluntarily choose to stick with these 6 standards. Now, the key word there is voluntarily. It's not a kind of binding regulatory thing. It's a set of sort of self-governed standards which all the companies which are a part of it choose to adhere to. But it's basically a set of protections. It's important that you know, though, but because it's voluntary, it's not something that if a company which says it's part of SHIP somehow lets you down in some way, you can't complain under the SHIP scheme. It's not a regulatory thing. But if a company purports to be a part of SHIP and then breaks one of its commitments under that, you would of course have redress under the Ombudsman, Financial Ombudsman Service. But anyway, what are these 6 standards that the SHIP members choose to adhere to? They're guarantees, okay? So this basically you've got 6 guarantees, 6 things that they will definitely do or that you are definitely able to expect under the SHIP scheme. So the first one of those is an important one. They're all important really, but the first one is that you can remain in your house for life. Now, bear in mind, under equity release, you've either borrowed money against the value of the house, or you have sold your house under a home reversion plan. But the first of the SHIP guarantees says that you can remain in your house for life. Now, that's a pretty valuable guarantee, as I'm sure you agree, but you can remain in it for life as long as it is your main residence, which simply means that if you go into long-term care permanently, then that sort of guarantee stops then, and as we've talked about before, you would have to sell a property or repay the loan if you've done a lifetime mortgage. Second of the guarantees is to provide what is called a fair, simple and complete presentation of the plan. Home equity release is, as we've said, a massive decision, so you need to know you're making the right decision, and in order to make that as easy as possible for you, home equity release providers will make sure that their documentation and their brochures and things like that will be as clear and fair and simply presented as they can. So that's another very important factor under the SHIP scheme. Thirdly, there is a right under the SHIP scheme that you can transfer your home equity plan to another property. Specifically, we're talking about lifetime mortgages there, of course. As long as the property is suitable, it's not like a houseboat or something like that. As long as the property is suitable, you can port the lifetime mortgage from one property to another. So that's, it's built into the SHIP scheme. Very important. Fourthly, you are given the right under the SHIP scheme to choose your own independent solicitor. We're going to cover the advice process next time, but part of that advice is that you get independent legal advice, somebody who only represents your interests. It's very important that you're not just using a solicitor that the equity release company you're not just using their pocket solicitor, you're using your own solicitor that you've instructed, that you can trust to give you an independent view on the legal implications of equity release. And that's built into the SHIP scheme. It's this right to take advice and have your own solicitor act for you in the transaction. Fifthly, there's something called the ship certificate. Now, this is something that your solicitor has to sign, and it's really important part of it, because the solicitor is only allowed to sign that when he or she is satisfied that you, the borrower, or the client, if you like, has fully understood all the implications of equity release. It's really important. I've said that they're all important. That's because they are. But this certificate is your guarantee that your solicitor will only sign that if they're happy that you've fully understood all the implications. Sixthly, I've mentioned to you before, last time I think, is something called a no negative equity guarantee. Now, we looked last time at the maths. We did some calculations of how the interest would roll up, how the property value would increase, and showed you that this sort of fear that you're going to end up owing more on the property than the property is worth is not only very unlikely, but under the SHIP scheme, it's actually impossible. There's something called a no negative equity guarantee, which simply means that the most money you will ever owe is the value of your property. And we saw last time that, practically speaking, that's very unlikely. So those are 6 things there. There's the ability to remain in the house for life as long as it's your main residence, to provide fair, simple, complete presentation of whatever plan it is you're taking out, the right to move that plan to another suitable property, the right to have your own independent solicitor, the certificate which that solicitor will provide when they are happy that you understand all the implications of what you're proposing to do, and 6th, the no negative equity guarantee. Now, collectively, that is the SHIP scheme, and it's a really powerful set of protections for you. Certainly, I would only ever recommend an equity release provider which adheres to that scheme, and you should only take one out with a company which adheres to that scheme. Remember, it's voluntary, not binding, but the Ombudsman, Financial Ombudsman Service would certainly look very dimly on an equity release provider which purported to be part of the SHIP scheme and yet reneged on one of those commitments. So I hope that's helpful. Leave any questions, as ever, underneath the video here, wherever, on the site, Facebook, on Twitter, or wherever. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.